Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
Katikiri mwalali
kugamba lulinti tia gas nayogera ne bajeno even yesterday nafunye meeting ne bajeno abalala ate nga tulina strategy endala gye tuwogerako kazi gwampita omulalu nze sikufanako ate ng'era wiiki ewedde nalaba Jeno Lusoke Jeno Lusoke nambulya Masoni ye nti agwe tontegeera kale abo mwana nga ab'amaanyi ate bakuyita oyogere nabo ate ndanga dini zirowooza nti zijja kujja
Jeno Lusoke abalina obuyinza obusirisa bakuyita ne bakubriefing ne bagamba nti kino tukola kino
you don't understand my mission.
This is my mission.
My mission is not vaccination. My mission is ndala nnyo. But the problem they do nti abakola ebirungi mu Uganda tebafuna publicity. Abakola Museveni tebaba na sente. This day I don't know it. Tegere motunule mission Jeno Lusoke jaliko. Yamanyi nnyo era namugamba ti my fear is eja kubeera task force eveewo. This would be a monitoring unit.
A monitoring unit
yes, monitoring ate balabwa tebalabika nebagamba nti kasola bomugaga uganira mu bbala abayayavuwala omama Mirundi naze bulijjo olwawo negative akutegedde teria zegula banja ku bucha akulembera layini osoka ajja kuba sinna tundako
wena kulinda abesente ne bagula
bumulaba abawogana babali omunsi they are powerless. Kanyamataleekana, a powerful person does not make a noise because he knows.
Obana assignment anti rusobola kwa assignment yunga ekulekanya.
Singa balekana abamaje tebaleekana.
Kwa kati CDF mbali umusubira kuogera ddi abere mu strategy na biki bwabera wecho kuogerera nga Flavia bye kwasa kyogerera poye mogezi wa
the organized institutions leso kusoma katapaka no nyenyole
kanta nikira kubanga ensonga nyingi twafirirwa twazise
akakataboka somako page nganya
Lion of Mogadishu
twabere no nakawandika
ekitabo kyensoma kirwa kita
The Invisible
Hand 10 July 2012
mbabazi
emyaka mwenda
mbabazi yaganda omusajja yantandikira oku
emyaka mwenda ejise
tolaba mukono gwe naraga
emyaka mwenda gwani
nti mu government ya Museveni mulimu omukono gwe wuba
enti gugu no gwe wuba ne guno gwani omukono
gwali gwa mbabazi
finally gugiriki omukono gwali gwa mama
mbabazi ati si Invisible Hand
ande nali manyi omukono gwali gwa mama mbabazi nenga tigutegereke
nga tibagutegere
the Invisible Hand je
intelligence
nero katandikire kwa echo tusome page ngasizo tukatabiro bene bino it is a non-political science principle that a setback is good and success after success is also bad. When you suffer setbacks you go back and ponder over it, leading to a solution. However, a success after success creates confidence and one takes many important things for granted. In politics, an institution must operate like a living thing. It must assimilate, adopt and discard. Religious institutions know this very well. However, for any religious institution to survive, the changes should not erode or undermine the core values, otherwise it turns into something else. If a woman applies cosmetics to the extent that her husband does not recognize her, then the cosmetics have not achieved their objective. Omukazi wesiga ambi najuka buchuzi nobuzene mumchala wange dentegeza
sinodi tayinza kujawo local values sinodi bweja nemutula nemu edini nemujijungula tebeere eno eddiini inakubeera nga ina ddogoma tebanywa omulokole tanywa mwenge kakati oli akugamba tuye eyo kati ate mukoze kirala
twakizudde nti Yesu si mwana wa Katonda eyo kati ddiini ndala bevuddewo. The role of cosmetics would be to provide more beauty but at the same time retain the original features of the woman. Setbacks help to waken up the people. They are like warning bells in a car or barking dogs. If one responds in time, the danger done is little. However, if the organization rejects, it ignores the warning bells, then the enemy eats up the organization. Even where there is treatment for a particular disease, early detection is very important for its treatment. Like human beings, political organizations are attacked by their enemies on a daily basis. It is a level of the early detection of an organization that saves it from the enemies. The institutions should create an early warning mechanism as well as a quick response, in order to survive. Political institutions suffer from what we call political inertia. They develop weakness. They are like human beings who have to observe a high level of hygiene to avoid falling sick. Furthermore, political institutions are like human beings who must ensure self-preservation. A human being succumbs to death. A human being survives to death, then which ends the life cycle. If a political institution loses political preservation, it dies like a human being whose defense system succumbs to diseases. Finally, and more importantly, political organizations must have detective systems to check the internal enemies and its external enemies. Intrigue is a very important weapon that external enemies use to sabotage or to destroy any political organization. Losing by-elections. The NRM has lost a number of by-elections, which in politics is normal, although the party must investigate a cycle. Democratic elections create losers and winners. Secondly, for a ruling party to lose a by-election depends on many factors. It does not necessarily mean losing support. Where the ruling party registers the majority of the seats in parliament, the voters may decide to check it by electing the opposition candidates in the subsequent by-elections. For example, former Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew stated in his book The Singapore Story that the opposition tricked his party when they did not field candidates in many constituencies, and the ruling party members of parliament went through unopposed because before the actual general elections. This sent alarming messages to the voters that the ruling party would lack checks in parliament, and therefore on election day the voters returned to few opposition candidates who stood. The opposition trick worked perfectly well. The voters voted the opposition to retain checks in parliament and to avoid a single party arrangement in case the ruling party took over the government. In this case, even the popular ruling party candidates who did not go through unopposed lost to the opposition. Secondly, the ruling party supporters voted the opposition because they believed that their party's survival had already been preserved. This situation created a common bond between the supporters of the ruling party and decided not to turn up for the earlier results had restored their confidence that their party had already won the opposition that feared the uncheckered dominance of the ruling party, which turned into large numbers. Another situation is where the ruling party is a blank check. Is given. I think it was a blank check. Because of its prevailing political environment. Politics at times is like a love relationship. Love suffers from diminishing returns. In his book Julius Caesar Shakespeare, it tells us that when love starts to sicken and to decay, it uses an enforced ceremony which is forced politeness. Take for example, in 1986 to 1990, the NRM was given a blank check by the people who had borne the atrocities of Obote and the Lutra governments. At the time, the NRA was dominant by the Baganda and Banyankole. The NRC, apart from ministers who came from other tribes, was dominated by those from the bush. The NRA was also dominated by the Banyankole. This explains why Dr. Alex Ofumbi, who was running a clinic in Yantonde and Okecho, Dr. Bata, took center stage because they were not from Buganda or Ankole. These were the people like Teddy Wamusi gave the NRM the national outlook on addition to its ideology. Although the NRC had members had members of humble education. This was not considered a serious matter at that time. Soldiers became abana bafe, and nobody at a single time, nobody at that stage had time to waste by looking at the shapes of their noses whatsoever. These were non-issues at the time. Uganda had these were non-issues at that time. Uganda had more important issues occupying their minds.
Yes.
Tandi kunyonyola abantu tuleko invisible hand nenga ebina tubigate kumbera n'ebintu gebitambulira ngebifano lwalero.
A political system is a living thing. It absorbs and discards. You must have reforms. That's why they say that is when nakulia mu 60s nga faza asoma misa nga akubya abakristo omugongo.
Ngalabatunulira atayinza okuba alutali omugongo bwagifuuyira ate Vatican tunetuula nega nti nedda kati ate mutunulire wa Kristo kati alutali mujikuba omugongo ekino bakigumira ekino tikyakyusa ddiini.
Yes, eddiini remained. Ndi ensaasi zitandika okubwa mu 69 ku bajulizi mu church nibaga nti ensaasi is an instrument si ya busamize. It just makes noise. It's an entertainment gund. Kakati as long as tofanana ngono omukazi eyeyerusiza nebbanga takyamutegeera, then what did you do it? Because the intention of a woman is to make herself more beautiful, but as it retains
features in the
nebu kibanga weyerusiza nga balo
cosmetic tuka kuchusa kubuza abantu babuza ndi kazi ye mchala gundi ayise wanu ngabuze
ngakitegeza ne balunga
takyakutegeera.
Nenkugamba nti sejja neba ng'ensonga ezimu si nsonga olw'ensonga aba embeera ebeerawo. Kyobula nti mawanga agasinga obungi fe kyetutakoze nti up to today abantu boogera kuhitira emyaka 6 didde lwe balumba France to liberate France lukuzibwa up to today. Generation eno netegeera ebyaliwo ogwo mulimo wane yali gubakoledde naye Museveni's system is unique. The once they saw Museveni praising one as articles or one became a problem mu UBC ya government
omuzungu naiti mukobamu
gundi ngoyogera nnyo n'eminensi serwadde bagobe mu kanisa kati yiba kanisa ki
nga barokora banwe bakugoba nyobera nyino omutume
sikati kati atotya
tebakufunana kuvuma mutume nti osabotage ngomutume.
Yes, ye unique
oyamba nyo omutume.
The system ya Museveni nagibalangi manye era teyina kintu kyesobola kunkola n'enyiga tukita systems analysis mbamanyi nti bw'omala obakolera ofuuka mubi. Why? Nti omukazi nga bagameyire ne bamuvuma ne bakola kikati ali jobless oyinza n'okusanga talina security. That's what they do. Olumala bakolera ne bakanyuka kasasiro kubanga bo tebalina future cadaship and to okolera ani okolera Museveni gwe baagala okusuula ekitegeeza abaana abaagala okutta kitaabwe omwana aleeta eddagala bamuttirawo kitamu alwadde lwaki oleeta eddagala nga ffe twagala ddadi affe tugaba n'ebintu. That's Museveni's system.
Abana ono aletera tata katunda.
They are seeing Museveni as a political liability. Whenever he stays in power longer abantu bajja tutegeera nti ffe tubbi batubbe kati ono gwe tulina okujjawo ate tumuwonoone
naye baluddewo kubanga era abantu babategedde President Museveni era aluddewo
kakati gwe bw'oba tobategedde taawukane man like me whose mother was on musirinchiti ate bansasula nakungoba nebankuba amawulire ne banzija ku TV zonna ne banzija ku ki. What type of system is this? What type of God?
Gwe wajinyiga
njimanyi
era tekunyiza na
hapana nasoma political science. I look at system nti nawe olwazala lwafa ayabika bwabisi embizi eri obwana bwayo a revolution can eat children.
Tamale, everybody nakatubirete.
Yes.
This is 9-10 years ago.
Yes.
Invisible hand.
Yes.
How does it play out today?
Ntibi mulimu.
Mbabazi ya fuluma. Wacha aliyo mkono mula.
Anti kankubulire nti Museveni omwana alwadde olukusense n'aluwona n'alwala wayirindi n'amuwona n'akubwa polio n'amuwona weekends. Museveni is government is as a weekend. Mbabazi besi ya jirumba inside bana ajiwanika waggulu
besi ya leta wayirindi
mbabazi najja
n'alisimama ni kuambia
yenga atayina surgical aplantinga mu bantu mu government muli ekitegeeza has weekend. This explains why you have so many contradictions mu government yenu osoma kano notegeera
ekyo kyekiri weekend.
Yes.
Abantu abagirimu abagirira mu
yes bagikubye nnyo nti bo baalisamininga mu 2010 batandika okukuba Museveni mu 2009 nga bamanyi agenda n'akoma buli baga 2016 ku luno tumutwala naye buli muti buli mbazzi gyotema muti gwenyeenya gwongera ku weekendinga nababuuza nti abasajja bana ne bakwata embazzi ne batandika okukuba ennyumba nga bava mu directions ez'enjawulo oseka gwali mu nyumba nti anti they are divided naye buli omu akuba nnyumba egwe. Nawulidde empuuga gyo ng'ayogera temwabeena alimu abalowooza nti Museveni alina kyasobola okukola. Ono Farao ono gundi mufu Sulemani kuyegeza ategeera naye Sulemani omufu lwaki olubiri lwe mwoli Sulemani omufu lwaki abaserikale be bakuuma mpuuga mubuli obusiru anti musiru ate Katonda akuwayo omuntu omulala era omuntu engina gwe yazaala nga musiru era gwakyalina.
Tamale oyogera ku leader opposition
anti kubuulira kye qualifying anti oli musiru kati omusomesa bwakuga nti very poor abavuma kitaawo ebigezo bawa bigudde
ngoba twayise.
Yes. Kubanga Sulemani omufu ate abatyanga system zo ziyingiramu Sulemani omufu
yakuwa maje yakuwa moroka yakuwa musala yakola
kati oba Sulemani mufu kati naawe oli muzimu wango mufu akolaga n'abafu banne n'olabe empuuta oyo naye ayina katengezi muwerekera omwana nge mujja mu magi kasanda banga awerekera abo bakulannama nti nakulannama ate jajja mayembe n'akumibwa jajja mundu wali okirabye waffe ababimanyi. So kakati nkubuulira nigamba nti after studying tukita the body politic of the country, you study the body politic of the country. Nti enjaza okugisaba omuzigo so kulabire ku baana baayo. After studying your body politic it helps me to understand tikakati gwe tukubuuza nzina kyogera nembagamba nti singa Sheikh Semakula agenda kusiibula basiraamu banne mukazi wo wefujjo najja ekyupa z'omwenge n'aziteeka wali naddiya ekigoto ky'embizzi n'akisula mu ppira awo aba ayagala
tusiibulula abantu oba oyagala
n'okuswaza
abayagala kuswaza bagati bade oluseeka gomulusi musiraamu abeera n'emyenge n'ebigoto neki
kakati ekimiteetiyo. If the constitution of Uganda does not allow torture, and if you torture suspects, then you are killing the case. Those who torture suspects and take them before court when they are nursing their wounds, when everything can tell, even a baby. Ayagala Museveni
kusibulula abantu
oyo nono bafaanagana
andi yaje tu ajayo mwenge na kuita abana kabali
kujama Museveni yabagulira gome ye Museveni hajeti amuswaziza na kuba ikigodo mu pira watamugulira Gomez akakaya kalita nti what is the intention? Museveni si mafia tategera ba mafia izoti mafia
ninde ba mafia
atali mwinza tegera
balemeddo mutegera
ati jinkuulira ndi yasaba ivingira ku chances za Katonda
President Museveni.
Yes, politics is soccer biri kulaka wosinza amagezi munsi ne buli omwaga nti ono musajja ow'enviiri bakugoba noddayo for doing the work for the president. Never could be found and you go for the moors. Could you get a story? A journalist must be humble. Can you get a story? A Katakazinda Wali Kakuzoto, while waiting Gumuhozi immediately interviewing.
As if I got a new.
Yes, a journalist to get a story, you must be humble. You can even enter a mosque in Goyagala Sheikh.
No God, got
omusajja omuyangamba nti njagala obeera omugenyi omukulu ku ssomero lyaffe tugenda kusonda ssente naye ojja wali ewedde nentegeera kyagamba nti tojja ng'onywedde namugamba nti ku mikolo gy'abasiraamu nange entegeera mala ennaku nga bbiri nga sinywedde ekyo kyekitya you are just diplomatic. But I know what you are telling me to do.
Tulinde konge swale we. Chele tegeza naganja tosembere salango kabiri aya mwili. Tojo ibada yafe.
Kakati whoever touches suspects and this is the practice. A person was trailing Nantaba.
Sebulime baro mtani.
Sebulime. Nantaba badi sebasobola kusisinkana kusezibwa. Nga Nantaba ava ayolekera Kampala nga ne gundi ayolekera Kampala. They could meet at Sezibwa from different directions. Singono yali asozeno gye bali bamugamba. This man came from Jinja. Simple explanation. You don't bring a gun. Yes, abo. Common sense. Two, amawulire gonna the following day gali awoshi. Minister survives assassination. Enchane chichuka pokede netu nyonyola yabadde mu graves yabadde mu chi
ana banyonyola
amawulire gonna kanyonyola. What happened the following day? Nantaba yagamba bodyguard we fire in the air. Bodyguard we namugasobola kuba provoking. I don't know their capacity. Ne tutuke mu trading center tuyimirire. Nebadde mu trading center ne bayimirira. Kakati Nantaba this way abakaza baba bakambwe yavuga emmotoka yina agenda ekayunga neera baba ekayunga pickup yekayunga ebate nanoonya mutemu suspect ngeyavudde ekawempeze era ye yamukwata. In almost circumstances this man would have been arrested, taken to the police oba kayunga obawa, put in a parade to be identified by both Nantaba and her security people. What happened? A handcuffed man bamujja ku pick up ne bamukuba amasasi ate sali yamala kuogerera ku simu mujirete nte technology muyina ababulya ne conversation ebyo enchane bakwata amawulire gamwe ga toilet papers. These are toilet papers. Your newspapers are toilet papers. Ne baleetera nanga kaka nagamba nga bwakima Nantaba ewuwe kati kaka afuluma mu nyumba. How could it turn into Nantaba? Never come in family Yabasiru. Soon Nantaba. For what?
Family Yabachi?
Yabasiru abafiru umundu. Kubanga gobo kerizo kweyambisa katika nkubuzi. Yefu kadaga ino mutima ngogo anga musomba tayari tunzebye nabi malawo.
Salamu somba.
Yes.
Ino mutima ngogo gwali
position. Kubaga kati musomba abakuwangula gumu. The strategy was mugamenti aliko omusanga alimekulondebwa kubwa speaker nembagamba mmateka tekiriyo. Kakati baduse nanyine buyinza yadusa abadapanga ebyo byonna. Twembala singe kadaka tukole tutya. Kati bagukulekedde. Kati baduse kajegere. Mukubira tepo ezatulange wakajegero duka
musumba kigademu yekanga tumite kikolera
musinde no bujozi bwabwe kuba bakosa short term strategies but musumba ukasi yu nganange bwemba kasi
neye musumba tiyamanya nti bamukosa
tosobola bategeera atudde mu nyinyi tayinza kutegeera nti yegwa noga nti katonda fene yatutonda abantu bingazi nezo mu Asia bisatu mu 5
tuferumu
yes mwoyogera nabo oyogera nabantu nabaga kamba buli owasi person bwaba ina amanya agafanana gatya tasobola kulwana nababba moto kubanga conversation ekyo ko mulundi gumu musibomugo mukube nyondo bozonyumya nabo so you can even think that is a joke eraza abo bamusumba sibanenya bwolaba omusajja afunyisiza omusisita olubuto n'amujja mu convent nga buli lunaku bamusomesa butabeera n'abasajja bwafunyisa muwala we olubuto abasajja banaani gwe batakubye ku ttaka okujjako nze abakubya myaka 8 nembawanika obugulu
Tamale bijambye byakomyewo wamwe
andi okitegedde nti tutula mu bade politiki
nebijambia kati birimu invisible hand
what the politique into killing prime suspects is a practice in Uganda. Don't blame this the Lion of Mogadishu. Is your practice. It means there is a subterfuge in the government. Government ya Museveni ilimu ichitambo. Ate kitambo fa bamanye ebyekisamize ebyo. Ekitambo kigana lubalo okwogera. Bamala kikwata. Naye se bakwata ekitambo. Mubasawo 10 mulimu ogwo. Mpozi kati futatu
kati ekine kya government akikwata
tanalabika mulimu ekitambo kya maanyi
akikwata tanalabika
bakita subterfuge. Gendo some ekigambo subterfuge. A government within composed of criminals. Nti oli kimuba kiyitako. How could the newspapers that published a story that a minister had survived assassination then turn against Nantaba? No, nti mu government ya Museveni omuzungu yajja nangamba nti abibifaananyi bino abasajja babajja mu Musevabuzi ekyengera ne babasiba abasajja ne bawulira emmeeri nga etambula ne babatuusa ekalangala ku kizinga lw'amayuba sobi nga ye Nampala Hitlers camps nabasiba ne bagenda bali ebinazi bya kaka
nga bali Milani kaka director general isay
bwe bandeetera gundi n'entandika obbogerako ne babajja ku kizinga ekyo lw'amayuba ne babateeka ku kizinga ekirala mukwate sobi ne bateeka ku kizinga ekirala kati bw'obeera mu nnyanja olabanga short distance what happened abaana banne bawuga badduke ng'onyaza abali kandi Museveni nagamba nti bwe baliteekawo commission of inquiry about Museveni's government yajeegana bwe baliteekawo commission of inquiry about Ministry of Education facility alijeegana tajibeeranga mbogera ndala kandi Museveni believe that there can be slavery in his own country and Museveni believe it but you want gundi toilet papers cannot publish setambulira ku media. These are toilet papers. Ndikakati bakutuka n'omusango gwa organs. Ngenda kubeewuunya government yabagulidde ba lawyer. Naye bwe batampa sente. Bumutampa sente.
Government ye Museveni government
titi. I'm going to embarrass you and you cannot kill me.
Who tells you that assurance?
Nabaweereza message omusajja n'atuula. Nabaga nti this man has clarified. This does not mean reconciliation. This means helping you not to surrender the evidence to the International Criminal Court. I'm even threatened by being declared an international hostile witness. Me, my culture, I cannot surrender 83 Ugandans to ICC. When even trafficking in human organs has been raised to capital offense. The government get a person to send. The lawyer told you this is not a simple case unless you talk to that man. Mumpresent. Yeto mwana wangu.
Tamale.
Neka kati ukitegeera. Nti singa wabaddewo government endala. It is estimated that 4,000 Ugandans girls were killed in India alone and their organs extracted illegally. Museveni yezo kukizza nti government here ngatudde ku bbali wali ne wabeerawo inquiry. Can you accept? Naye yali bijeewa.
Naye tabimanyi.
Intelligence terimuwa.
Naye tabimanyi.
Amawulire toilet paper bakwata 10 billion ne baziwa abamawulire. Waliwo kampuni y'Abachina wano bemuwanda. Newspapers.
Toilet paper?
Toilet papers. Because a media ekolanga intelligence. A media alerts people. People seem to be reading newspapers. Asoma trust.
Tamale.
Anti eyo case weeri nkukubira obutambi wano. Neti je babaddemu.
Echongo kyakiri awo Tamale.
Yes.
Kakati olwo omusango gutambula ekimene gye bonabwe. Naye wamwe batta abantu.
Ati batta ate ekyogera oyogera ki. Let me tell you. Mwekibe kyemuva mwerabira. Abatemi b'ebijambiya
abakomyewo
batema abantu. They were arrested and taken to Masaka police. They were charged, sent to Masaka prison. On the day when they had to go back to extend, how did they escape? One, there were 3 functions in the massacre. There was a function at Kako, presided over by Makubuya. The Kabaka was in his Ruby Palace on Makubuya Wemel. Kabaka Yalimurubizirwe, which means security on the ground was very thin. Kupulani did. And the Tutwalo Musangu Gunumukot, to Kutwalinga Wali, never got me into events, never got to me. Katumba Malabari were attacking between the presidential nation
instead of the national address
ne budget. We are planning giving our mind and Pologoma Yamugadis Yafud the Kulot nga wali watch Mukolo Chogwamanyo Guavadeo because of Yavan Panang and you're planning a bit.
Planning in Pologoma food.
Let me tell you,
if an accident
when you were trained the policeman or police pathologist for the training to be a navy sumers and doing it among you by your mood. Security, so you say no one. Children's in the Mugis, integrating you by them. You want never could have been to be an Emmanuel Magis, about to be the Magis, Kubanga Wing among you by your mood, the Chekasat or Gamaru or whatever you were sans him. Nga we video, you can even draw photos. Kagaji, scene of a crime, a very serious, Neribonis. If you find, first of all, a medical doctor, what would a medical doctor move with? A man of that type. Empologoma, Yemogadishu, Bakubide, until I am Sajali Bobby. Look it again an ambulance. Why are you confident that you will find him dead or you will treat him there?
Personal doctor, you have an ambulance. But again,
if you find somebody corrupting or Mukwatako, you call in somebody else, the experts. These cases will be reviewed in the future and the culprits will be arrested. When I mean he killed this woman, he staged the fake accident. You go and ask him again. Ask the former vice president second. Ask Kidu Makubuya. When the president instituted the commission of inquiry, what happened? They investigated Lumos 78, 86. How many years?
But actually, 62. But
and in Kubulia Lumia Fadi.
Lumia 77.
Yes. 86 the man who staged the fake accident, Seruo, was still in the police force. The police pathologist who supported the Seruo's fake accident was still alive. The man who authored Obete's walk right to Langis and Acholis that was attributed to Obete that were inciting Acholis and Langis, the man had written it in his handwriting. He was traced and arrested. Muda abantu bajja kufanga mujja kulaba abaduka
akakachiko second year lead council wako.
Did you know this? Bagenda ekiryocha ne bayola abantu kumbaga nga balowooza nti mulimu abayekera asatu mu babiri ne babatwala emutuma ne babakuba amasasi neeraba omwana omu yajja yeesumulula mu kkubo n'abuuka ku loole ne batya omukuba amasasi nti kajja kwalaatinga abayekera. He reported to the committee and reported the killers who are still alive. Ejjogo lijja bagwa mutwe obuchozi bujja bagwa mutwe. You'll be embarrassed in the future.
Who is behind ebijambia ebita abantu kati?
Ndi kugainti sija ebijambia baba kwata ne babatwala mu kkooti
ne batoloka
bete baba sibanjegerenga kitatta tebajjira ku njegere bwe batuuka mu kkooti ne bakola mu akavuyo ne bava mu kkooti ne badduka naye nga security ekuba mu bbanga nenga bano tebayimirira. How could these people know that these people are not going to shoot at us? Tubakubireko mungalo.
Nedda guesswork. Bagi singa.
Naye tewali mu serikali ayakwatibwa.
Kumali kudite.
Era nabagamba mbu bayise mu kooti ne bayingira mu kibira. Where is ekibira ku kooti ye Masaka? One day you will pay. One day you will pay. And according to Miso, there was a waiting car. One of the suspects was arrested in Hungary on his way to Rwanda. Another one fled to Nairobi.
Ati bebanu bakwa tuluvanyuma kidawali mene nichamba
ate no yo mukazi na chamba de yeteka obwetesi the real people who were involved ono bamuleta kubba mu 7 na chamba de bamuleta kubba mu 7 you know the once way omanyete bali bagenda kutema ewaffe
ne bijambia
omanyete bali bagenda kutema ewalu kwako meya ne mukubera ne mugamba
mulira nageni se ne
bazi mechotera
nokubera lukwago
Mbabazi yakugambya ati
Linda Katona
ulia Mbabazi yakugambya ati nti omusajja ina network which dwarfs the official security. Sebe yogenda akatambira wakawulite
akatambira kawulide na yeri Linda Katona bobali bagenda okuteme wamwe then what happened?
Baki players. In fact I took one of the person who knew this group to a certain minister, and the minister promised nti agenda kulaba president.
Yamulaba
simanyi
kewaluka kwalaba gena
nti wano nti oyina ekyo jjokola wano nga sikimanyi tewabuli akatambi nga baga nti banzite tewakowulira alufa yatera ati you don't go now but my people I'm Karancho, you think I'm Erasco here ngamba bwenti abali batusi we have already arrived at the scene the advance part abavubuka aba nabakubira ne jambo nga batusi wake wange
ekalakala
wane wazana nkugamba bana bali bagala okunzita kakati mbawulira nga baga nti omanyi tudire umuserikale womu tumujewo tulete omulala mukube kiresasi nditamumanyi olwagenda ne muyito nasanga bajewo umuserikale ngomba mututte balese omupya nemugandi how did you come here to my bosses who told you to come here
nabogera
nemulaga meeting eno giraba
yakulese mvira
ne bagenda bakusubiza milioni 10 zitebagenda chikuwa kumacha nemulaga ne muyita ne mugaga bujangula be omusajja gwe bayita Mirundi namubuuza nti mudira alaba TV yani nti yegwe museyi ate goyogera naye ebweru yani nti yegwe nemugamba have you seen any of my children entering this house
oyina mwaka gorogosi mu nyumba kabateka
atiwa mutuyita bakuzanya when you see us in nice suits namuga akati kubako mwesimu kubako mwesasi
kubabiri ronda kugoyega
the man who is watching in Nigeria you enter there who is he there ania arabe in Nigeria mu nyumba nti yegwe dress like me ate goyogera ne yani nti yegwe sebo namuga akati kubako mukufe teyadda Teri network yawa no yo na one day they will be arrested because
tuyambe kubijambia
tukakati balibe mukute isu nkugami nti a state is like a human being. It is attacked every day. A body is attacked every day. Government is attacked every day, but its immunity system matters.
Immunity system ya government ya Museveni
yachi nkubulira
enafiye
bagikubye nnyo ndikakati bagenda ate ne bwoba mu makango oli mukodo abana bakuyiyo kulyako sente ogenda okukakana otunde mwanyi abana ne baleta ababbe nti dadi yatunze mwanyi naye temumutta ogenda kulaba muzeje mukulu nga yezinze ku mubbi namukuba omutayimbwa mu mutwe n'omwana akaaba kwati yamulese waliwo omukazi yagenda mu babbi omusajja yagenda mu babbi n'abaga nti manya abakazi bafumbirwa obusajja obwavu oyina forex mobile money ngoyo namaganda how can you get married to omwetisi w'emigugu
namaganda yani
yafa yamujira acid yes kati omusajja yagamba abatemu temukazi wange ayingira ne milioni 12 meka Nonga fetu jana mundu nti yakwata wajambia na mukanga nazo. Abe mundu bambesasi ndi bamutanga ina mutwala ku mukitundu. That is what I was saying. Nti mu Uganda mulimu ebintu byangu. One. Ekikuubo kyemugamba nti mukikunyemu ebintu. What makes ekikuubo? Ekikuubo is congested because it's a well a gundi wholesalers and retailers. Remove one. Necho kyaliwo bayitawo nga omunansagazi. Ekizimbe ne bakyucha. Kakati, do you need to keep sugar in ekikuubo? If government kakati waliwo ebizimbe by'abantu bana Uganda waggulu tebaira bantu abantu tetukulyanga ko mu waggulu bateekayo saluuni na biki. What if government kateyina babbi nega ntufune ekizimbe nga wholesalers ba manufacturers bonna sukali bamuteekaawo? People move from Chikubo to where? Because what it takes them to Chikubo is what? Is sugar. You don't kakati baba antu batia losses. Nti when you want to decongest Chikubo to ina magezi bana basite kanso ate babiteeka wo ate ne babali yako sente nchani basigala wo kakati abasajja abali mu wino mwete mugenda yo teri minister yali nye mu wino bampira yo babbi genda mu wino abasajja bali bagala kola factory one tobola ba Nyanza bagitwala Rwanda. If you go to a wino nola ba section yetunde engoye mwete mumenchiri mu wino you don't know. Kakati abo bonna tebakola naye ngeri yebifo ngakatale kinatete kachi where you could just move these people because engoye size ziri mu COVID. In the process of selecting priorities mumusaze unti abatunde engoye but bagula bintu bayina bana basoma. Why don't I support abengoye into a building into a market? Kubanga baba bantu bajja kumanya bumanya nti ayagala ebyo sente ebyendola akola wa agenda bahi. All countries now have Chinese cities. Chinese cities, even if you go to New York, if you find it, yes, Chinese cities. Why are they called Chinese cities? Where things are bought cheaper. Bebe na bino bimulaba firiji bichi abazungu wajjawo development MP afulumya chikadde and you call in the people who collect them at your cost. At their cost. So remove obubi and solve a problem.
Tamale kwa takawe sawa ile mnede chikatano tuliza nze agenda sema kula siksoka no mkuku na vuku agenda kwa agenda. Mama Rose we komba tukula msizaye bali kwenda kumkutu ndugu Deo Masanga.
Umulamuzi akataba ngenda kamaliza when Sifu becomes a judge. Msajja umulamuzi yagenzi.
Umulamuzi ati
nasanga nga famu anti yatunda ate nalemerawo.
Ani
akwata abantu kati yagenzi. Umulamuzi yagenzi. Kakati bwatuka yagenti we komba te yasoma nze nasoma.
We komba going to be there in issue intentana no mulamuzi. Batomede.
Kakati ulira. Bwatuka yeri yasanze senyenge bagisaze. Nayagala kwata abakozi babano ababa we komba. Embwa za kutte bakozi be. Navanyo n'omuntu yegwe.
Omulamuzi.
When the judge becomes a chief mukalinde kagenda kufuluma atenze nti ebiduduma. Ojo me. Omuserikale namugamba. Do you see that man watching in Nigeria inside?
Kusanga meka.
Kumacha sawezi.
Satu.
Nemuganti ali mu nyumba. Gira ndidirisa. Obo yingire mu.
Omusirikale na Alexai.
Nagende.
Naganti gwe kwenda ba.
Muze ya musingi.
Muri babiri muri balongo.
Nemuganti ate ali kuyogera naye wano. Nti yegwe. Kakati ukitegete bakusubiza milioni 10 onzite. Nekati kukufa mbi kukubako omulala akutte. He never came back.
Yagenda omuntu gogwe gutyo.
Nibabuliza omulala.
Tabule kwatira